The August election pressure campaign and legal marijuana moves closer to the ballot. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. This is the final week for lawmakers to decide if they will ask voters to make it harder to change the Ohio Constitution in an August election. The matter is now in the hands of the House. This week, opponents of the move to require a 60% majority to change the Constitution rallied outside the State House. Inside the State House and on TV ads, supporters of the move are putting pressure on House Speaker Jason Stephens.
The clock is ticking. We have less than a week to save Ohio's Constitution from a radical liberal takeover. And Speaker Jason Stephens has the power to stop them. Conservatives across Ohio are demanding action. It's time for Speaker Jason Stephens to stop the liberal takeover of Ohio and vote with conservatives. Call and demand Speaker Stephens votes quickly to save Ohio's Constitution before it's too late. Save Our Constitution is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The effort comes as voters may decide in November whether to enshrine abortion rights into the Constitution. Mike Onidakis, as head of Ohio Right to Life, you've been trying to drum up votes in the House to get this on the ballot in August. Where do you stand?
Yeah, we're ready to go. We're ready for a vote next week. We submitted to the Speaker's office, which is a public record. Jeremy Pelzer wrote about it at cleveland.com. We turned in the signatures demonstrating that we had 60 members of the GOP. I believe we'll have 63 when the vote takes place, that supports a resolution to allow us, we the people, 8 million registered voters, to go out and decide what we want our constitutional standards. The cake's baked. We're ready to go.
So you have the 60 votes solid.
We have the 60 votes from individual members of the legislature who put in writing that I support this. We were told that we didn't have it. We went out and got it. We're ready to go.
Support is different than I will vote yes.
Yeah, well, they signed a document saying that they will vote and support the constitutional amendment with an August election.
Laura, what is the situation on the House delayed vote, or at least did not vote this week, whether it was a delay or not? It could come next week.
Right, so they had a committee hearing scheduled. There was a pretty big protest turnout, several hundred people, and the committee ended up getting canceled. There is a House floor session scheduled for May 10th, which coincides with the deadline that Frank LaRose set as the last minute for getting this thing on the August ballot. So, never say never. We'll see if it happens.
Mike, many people have come out opposed to this. Former governors, both Democrat and Republican. Former attorneys general, both Democrat and Republican. Mm-hmm. Local boards of elections, particularly in the August election proposal, have come out against this. With such overwhelming public opposition to this, even if it gets on the ballot, how on earth are you going to get it passed?
Easily, because the voters are going to be motivated to do this, at least the people, whether you be pro-life, you're a family farmer, a small business owner. Look, our coalition's large. It's not just Right to Life. Second Amendment, sportsmen. We have a large coalition ready to go for their reasons. Their reasons might not be my reasons, but they supporting our Constitution. Look, Mike, when former politicians come out and say, don't do something, we don't care what the political class thinks. Ohio's different today. We're not going to let the political class tell us what to do. We're not asking the legislature to change the Constitution. They don't have the authority to do it. We're asking them to allow us to have the debate in public square and cast our ballot.
Morgan, conservatives, particularly those opposed to abortion rights, might come out in August to approve this. What is going to be the response from those who support abortion rights and those on the left?
Well, and also just to clarify, I mean, this is so clearly an attempt to thwart the effort to get abortion rights in the Ohio Constitution. How do we know? Because we have never seen this type of effort before to change the Ohio Constitution and raise the threshold to pass ballot initiatives. And honestly, I mean, if there is such a concern on making sure that there is participation by the people, then why would you possibly take this type of measure to a special election that always in August always has extremely low voter turnout? So I imagine that there's going to be a lot of public support, as we saw this week in the State House, to block such an effort to make sure that we do what's necessary to protect our rights and freedoms here in the state of Ohio.
Andrew, the fact that this has not been voted on yet means it's not a slam dunk from your reporting, correct? There's still a lot of people wavering?
Yeah, I'm kind of gearing up as if this will pass. There seems like there's a lot of things kind of pointing in that direction, but at the same time, I had written a story about the committee hearing on Thursday that did not happen, basically. I spiked it, and so had the had they had the votes, and if it were an easy solution, they wouldn't have to do things like, delay sessions, cancel committee hearings and stuff like that. So I think the politics in the House right now are really complicated still with the fight over Jason Stephens becoming Speaker. So it just feels cloudy to me. But like I said, a lot of the signs to me point towards this going forward. So we'll see.
Mike, the first reason why we wanted to change the Constitution, or you proposed changing the Constitution, was to keep out-of-state special interests from interfering with the Ohio Constitution. The ad we just saw is largely funded by a businessman from Illinois whose company is in Wisconsin. Is that not special interest from out of state trying to influence our Constitution?
Well, depending on your definition, maybe. It might be. Is Ohio right to life a special interest? Is this group or that? Maybe. Maybe we all be.
But Ohio right to life has the word Ohio in it.
We do,
This guy's in Illinois.
So I don't know this guy from Illinois. I can't even pronounce his last name. Never met him. He's allowed to do what he's doing, of course. But it is what it is. Any group can do it. Anyone can come out and advocate for what they want.
You have said on this program many times that you welcome the debate over the abortion issue.
Absolutely.
You think this goes to the ballot. You welcome the debate to discuss civilly, hopefully, whether abortion rights should be illegal or not. Why not just have that vote in November? Why try to game the system in August to make it harder in November? Let the simple majority, how it's been for 100 years in the state, decide this issue, at least for now. Why not go that route?
Well, we don't even know if there's going to be a November election. Planned Parenthood hasn't turned in their signatures. Maybe they won't. We all know they want to hold this till 2024 anyways to protect Sherrod Brown. This is all about Sherrod Brown 2024. Mind you, they've said it.
They're gaming the system, though, in August.
Well, I'm sorry.
You're trying to game the system by...
Certainly not. When is the right day to have elections? Should we take a poll of 8 million voters and say, what day? Should it be March? Should it be May? I was all for this last year. Didn't get done. I was for a special election in May. Didn't get done. Here we are today. That's a question for the legislature.
As of right now, the legislature says August is not the time for an election. It's now illegal to have this kind of election in August.
Actually, it's not. What they voted on last year was to have no routine elections for tax districts, school districts, cities to just come in August and put something on the ballot. They didn't say you could never do it. They just said we're not going to have routine elections. The Constitution of the state of Ohio allows the legislature to set an election on a date and time that they so choose.
Where are we on the signature collection for the November abortion rights amendment? Has anyone heard anything? I saw for the first time today someone collecting signatures.
I've
Do we
run
know?
into signature collectors. I mean, I did an Earth Day event, and there was somebody kind of buzzing around with it. I've seen them out and about. So I'm not sure, where they are on if they're collecting as many as they want, or if they're on track, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm cognizant of seeing people in Columbus, which I think it's easier to get these kind of signatures than the 40 some odd non-urban counties around the state where you also have to try to do this. So it's maybe not the same picture everywhere, but talking to people on both sides, I'd say the people behind this are being cagey, but I think there's an expectation that they've hired a serious collection firm, and the expectation is that they're going to make the ballot. I still think it's hard, but that's kind of that's what you hear when you talk to people.
Right. Well, Thursday is the day for this at least the first part of this debate to be settled. Thursday, correct? Is it Friday? Wednesday. Sorry. Wednesday it is. Wednesday. Math is hard. Wednesday. Anyway, this was the week. I know that this was the week that Ohio lawmakers had to act on a proposal to legalize all marijuana in Ohio, or the matter could go before voters. Thursday's deadline to approve the initiated statute expired with no action, so supporters of legal recreational marijuana must collect now roughly 125,000 signatures to get the issue on the November ballot. If voters were to approve, pot would be legal for anyone over the age of 21, and sales would be taxed at 10%. Andrew Tobias, where the lawmakers, they had this chance back when medical marijuana was being proposed. It was a chance it was going to go on the ballot. Lawmakers said, hold on, we'll come up with something else, and it prevent the ballot. Why didn't that happen this time? I
think as you saw from the Senate, their solution was to broaden the medical marijuana program. That's like a process that's still going on. But Matt Huffman has talked about this. He has just zero interest in doing it. I think on the House side, I don't think there's support for it. And I also basically think they have other more pressing matters to attend to. So I think you see instances where these controversial issues are coming up and the legislature basically takes a pass and let them play out. And this is an initiated statute. So unlike a constitutional amendment, which are very hard to undo, if they don't like what the voters approve, they could always just change the law. So I kind of think they're just letting this one go by for a number of reasons.
Laura, is that say this passes in a squeaker in November, would lawmakers right away nullify this law, do you think?
I don't know. It's a little risky to completely reject the will of the voters, even if it is just a simple majority plus one. doesn't sit well. But you know, it's politics. Stranger things have happened.
We have
I mean, I
stranger
do think that this is, you know, we have fully legal marijuana in 22 states now. I think only 6 states don't even have medical marijuana. So there's a building tide toward this, and I think that overriding the will of the voters would be risky.
Mike, will lawmakers regret not trying to take more control over this themselves, reach an agreement with the supporters of this move to have legal marijuana but regulate it more, tax it at higher rates? Might they regret it?
Good question. You know, Senate Bill 9, Steve Huffman, cousin of the Senate President, has a bill that will expand medical marijuana in Ohio. It's a good bill. It will get passed. One of the bill sponsors had some health issues lately that he'll be back in the fold here soon. I believe that's going to get passed, and I think that will take care of some of these issues. It almost got passed last GA, but it got stuck in the House at the 11th hour. But there's a path forward for expansion of medicinal marijuana, and at the end of the day, voters would reject legal weed in Ohio.
You think so?
Yes.
Even though they've approved it just about everywhere else.
In Ohio, to me, deaths of fentanyl and other drugs.
Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of bipartisan support among people for just doing what is the reality, which is there are a lot of people who are already using marijuana. The research doesn't necessarily show that it is a gateway drug to other things, and we need to sometimes have our policymakers catch up with and focus on what the people want. And that would be great to see, but if not, then it sounds like a ballot initiative makes a lot of sense.
No, it's just anecdotal, but you go on the website for the group that's pushing this. It's Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, is basically, I think that's the name of the group. And the website hasn't been updated in a long time. They don't have the news that the lawmakers didn't act, and now it's time to collect signatures again. Is that indicative of their seriousness? Do we expect them, Andrew, to have resources for this?
I haven't talked to them about that specifically, but I think that with these campaigns, a lot of time it kind of works in blocks. For first you have to make the ballot, and then you kind of wait for the legislature to do something, and then you do something else. So I think it's not unusual for them to kind of just like take it step by step by step. So I know that they've had months to just basically see this is coming. It's not a surprise the legislature's not acting. So if this is a serious campaign, I think we'll be hearing more from them soon.
What's the timeline, Laura? Do they face a deadline? Is it like 90 days before the November election or something like that?
I think in order to make the November ballot, usually you have to turn your signatures in by July. It might be different for an initiated statute, but I'm not sure.
Okay. They'll have resources behind them. There's big money in the pot business.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. It's not totally a slam dunk, and I think that generally the marijuana, the national money goes toward states in which it's more of a slam dunk.
Yeah, and something I'll say too is that Ohio is always challenging for these kinds of things, and they'll tell you that there's a lot of media markets compared to other states. If you're trying to pass this like in Montana, where you basically have 1 or 2 markets, it's much easier. And I think like with the marijuana businesses are not booming like they were. I think like kind of investment and more risky stuff is kind of dried up. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe there's not as much money like awash in this as there would have been maybe even just 2 or 3 years ago.
Morgan, to Mike's point, Ohio's had a terrible recent history with drug addiction and abuse, with the opioid crisis. Is it a much harder sell here to legalize what is now an illegal drug here than it would, say, be in Michigan or Massachusetts or Oregon?
I mean, I think that we have seen fentanyl issues all over the country. Certainly Ohio has been hit harder, but we shouldn't underestimate the sophistication of voters. That I do think there's a lot of awareness, and this is a fairly easy to understand issue where people have this sense that there's a certain set of stakeholders that have been licensed to be able to make money off of this, and then there are other people that are being punished for the same product, and that doesn't seem fair. And when put to a vote, it has the potential to get public support. But I agree with what Andrew's saying, that just because people support it in theory doesn't mean that they've heard about your ballot initiative. So there's a lot of work still to do if this does come to that point.
And Mike, if you look at Michigan, they have it. The Cato Institute back in 2021 did a big study, and they found that the legalization of marijuana in the states that did it, the only thing it affected was the tax revenue. It didn't affect the good things that people were saying pot was going to do, didn't really happen. The bad things that people say were going to happen didn't really happen. That that helps the pro-marijuana legalization crowd, no?
I just disagree. You know, Ohio's a pretty rural state overall. You get outside of Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and we're pretty red. You know, red and rural and conservative family values. And I just don't believe that you're going to get the 50% plus one to say, yeah, let's have weed in Ohio.
All right, we shall see. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose seems like he's running for the U.S. Senate, but he has yet to formally declare his candidacy or make his pitch to voters. But in late April, he was making his pitch to Cleveland area Republicans who gathered for an event. Politico obtained a secret recording of LaRose making his pitch.
I can talk about vision for making the country stronger and why I want to serve in the state in the U.S. Senate, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, we need somebody that can actually beat Sherrod Brown. I've got like 80% statewide name ID. If you put 100 Ohioans in a room, 80 of them are going to know who I am. Matt Dolan has like 15%, 16% statewide name ID. Bernie Moreno has like 4% statewide name ID.
LaRose went on to discuss the value of former President Trump's endorsement, something that proved very valuable to now U.S. Senator J.D. Vance. LaRose downplays its importance in this cycle.
I think that he is influential. There's probably 20% of the party that will vote for whoever he endorses. There's another 20% that care about who he endorses, but that's not going to be the decision maker. And then there's probably another 60% of the party that don't care how he endorses, right?
Laura Bishop, we'll get to Donald Trump in a moment, but he said it. He wants to be a U.S. Senator. He said it privately here. It's no surprise, but when does he make it official publicly? What's holding him back?
Well, it's, you know, I don't know what his timing is on this. It's still pretty early. Moreno and Dolan got in on, I think, on the earlier side. I think it's going to, you know, I think it's going to be a big primary for the Republicans again. Maybe not quite as large as it was for Portman's open seat, but I do think it's going to be, at least on the Republican side, there's going to be a huge amount of money, a huge amount of fighting, a lot of controversy, a lot of jockeying for position, and I think that Donald Trump's endorsement is very key. I think that helped J.D. Vance enormously.
Mike Konadakis, well, let's fact check the name ID figures. Does Frank LaRose really have 80% name ID in Ohio?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question specifically. That seems a little high, but he is well known. He's been on this, he's been statewide one twice. Yeah, he's been state senator, and you know, he's got a lot of media attention. I'm pretty certain that the other two guys probably their name ID is low, just because Bernie Moreno is a businessman, you know. But he'll work hard.
Statewide, didn't win, of course.
Yeah, Bernie dropped out earlier though. But Bernie's going to work hard. He's got a great campaign. Matt's working hard. He's got a lot of money, you know, Guardians and other things to back him up. So I love it. Robust debate in the Republican Party. Go out, run if you want to run, and the voters will decide who's the best candidate to face Sherrod Brown.
Congressman Warren Davidson was not mentioned in that little clip. Is he offended? He's thinking about running, is he not?
Yeah, I've actually reached out to his camp this week. I didn't hear back. I think that they're kind of trying to keep their heads down a little bit. Generally speaking, as I've been doing reporting on this subject, many people think that he won't run. He passed on running in 2022 for governor. He considered challenging Mike DeWine. But at the same time, the Club for Growth has essentially said that they would back him if he did. So I think, I'm not rolling it out, but at this point I think that if you were to kind of pick who's more likely to run, I'd pick LaRose.
Yeah, he could not. He has to pick either Congress or Senate. He can't. Unlike Frank LaRose, he could keep his job if he loses. Sherrod Brown has been listed in the top 5 most vulnerable senators in this coming election in 24. How worried are they about Frank LaRose, Morgan?
I mean, I think that we as Democrats in Ohio have to be worried regardless of who the Republican opponent is in this race. It's going to be a fight. The numbers aren't trending in our favor. And so anyone who comes to the Republican primary will have to be taken pretty seriously. But, you know, in terms of LaRose's remarks, he hasn't announced yet. It's early in the primary. It's all about trying to make your case to get the money. And so it's in his interest to downplay the importance of someone like Donald Trump's endorsement when he isn't guaranteed to get it, to make sure that people feel like he has a strong candidacy that they want to invest in.
Well, he was careful. He didn't bash Donald Trump in this conversation. He basically said he wants Donald Trump's endorsement, but he's not going to grovel or beg for it. I forget exactly which word he used. And those numbers, they probably are fairly, I mean, 20%, 25% are going to go with whatever President Trump says, and then the rest are kind of wavering.
Yeah, but 20%, that's enormous in a multiple, you know, in a 4-way, 3, 4, 5-way primary. That's the decision maker right there.
Will it be that way again, Mike? What happens if there are 5 or 6 Republicans running? Will it be as nasty as it was when it was Josh Mandel and Gibbons and J.D. Vance and Matt Dolan?
I don't think so. Those guys are my friends, full disclosure, but they all have different personalities. Those two guys that you mentioned aren't running this time, so we probably won't see that fisticuffs like we famously saw on TV last year in that debate. And, and as Laura said, she's right. The President Trump in a wide open field, President Trump's endorsement, that is going to play a major role.
Any surprise that other statewide Republicans are not at least hinting strongly? They might, Dave Yost, the Attorney General, Keith Faber, the state auditor.
I mean, you need a lot of resources to run for the United States Senate. I can personally attest to that, and so it's not to be taken lightly. And if you already have a few clear front runners in your party, I mean, I think Dave Yost, Frank LaRose have aligned interests in certain ways. For example, I don't know that it's a huge surprise, but it's still early. There could be more that come in. But even having a few options is going to make for a fight on the Republican side, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Also, the environment here is a lot different. In 2022, as an open seat. It was believed to be a strong Republican year that didn't come quite to pass as much as people thought. This is going to be 2024. It'll be a more neutral environment. National Democrats are going to be pouring money into Senate Sherrod Brown's seat because that's the easy seat they have to defend of the kind of Trump states where they're looking to not lose control of the Senate. And so I just think, it's more of a meat grinder, and some of these people who might look are planning on maybe running for re-election or something like that. So.
All right. When Ohio holds primary elections, anyone can vote in either primary. All partisans and independents have to do is basically join that party for that election. But some conservative Republicans, including former Congressman Jim Renacci, want to close Ohio's primaries. Only voters who declare themselves Democrats or Republicans long before would be able to vote in their respective primaries. Renacci says open primaries can lead to what he calls party raiding, which allows voters from outside the party to choose candidates the party faithful may not want. Morgan Harper, what's wrong with saying, okay, this is the Democratic primary. We want Democrats to decide who their candidate is, or Republicans, and independents, if you want to, you got to let us know a few months ahead of time, not just on election day.
Well, first of all, we have very low voter engagement in education. So this is a horrible idea, in my opinion, because you're going to immediately further disenfranchise a lot of voters in Ohio that have no idea what primaries are and don't know what even elections are happening. And I'll also say that I think that it is a strength of our system here in Ohio that we have open primaries, especially as we're looking at more gerrymandered districts where different districts that are more likely to go in one party's direction are at play, that it's very important to keep this type of flexibility and especially as well because we have so many unaffiliated voters that they would be able to continue to engage in the system without having to meet some kind of party registration deadline.
Mike, should the primaries be open, or should the party faithful, whoever they are, decide who the candidate should be?
Primaries should be open. Mike, imagine if you were a Democrat in 2022 and your choices were Nan Whaley or John Cranley for governor. You're going to vote for Mike DeWine in a primary, and you're going to cross over him because he's the best guy to do it. I mean, my gosh, if I was a Democrat and those were my choices, geez, I'm voting for Mike DeWine. I'm not a Democrat. But it should be open. It should be open for anyone to vote in any primary they want. It's we the people. It's our ability to go in and vote. It's our constitutional right.
How much of this actually happens where somebody will cross over to be mischievous, or they'll go back and forth? I guess some independents may go back and forth depending on which is the tighter race, the more competitive race, right, Laura?
Honestly, I don't know if there's any data to show whether or not this is happening on such a level that it actually makes an impact. Like if they can do that. I mean, a lot of people have better things to do with their time than to, run around and, switch primaries. I also think that requiring this declaration, it just puts up another barrier to voting in primaries. So it would further suppress turnout.
If you look at the Republican primary in 2022, actually rather the Democratic primary in 2022 and compare it to 2018, it was a huge drop off. I didn't prepare these numbers or anything like that. That number is not that different than the number of votes that Matt Dolan got. So, you anecdotally heard from people in the Cleveland area, Democrat voters crossing over and voting for him. They saw him as being the most reasonable of that field. So, yes, there's no definitive data, but at the same time, I would by that, it's not insignificant. So just that's always kind of interested me.
But we also need to distinguish between party rating, which is some kind of supposed outside effort to swing primaries, and people as individuals making their decisions about how they want to vote in elections. I think the latter is, like Mike was saying, a good thing, encouraged. You should be making your own decisions. And I think the former is not that common in a way that it's actually swinging the outcomes of elections.
I do know one person who was on this show, very, very far left, became a member of the Republican Party so he could vote against Kenneth Blackwell when he was running for governor. So it has happened, but that was more of a protest. Anyway, our final off-the-record parting shots. Morgan Harper, you're up first.
Yeah, so one thing I'm keeping an eye on is just some of these electricity rate hikes that AEP Ohio might be bringing. And, I think we should all be looking at this because we don't really necessarily have a lot of data to support why they're saying they need this money. Data is good. We can't make informed public policy decisions if we don't have that. And so something that we should be speaking out about, I'd say.
Mike.
Next Wednesday, May 10th at 2 p.m., 99 men and women who we elected to be in the Ohio House of Representatives are going to either press the green button to allow us to practice democracy, trust the voters, or they're going to press the red button saying the political class is more important than we the people. We're asking everyone to press the green button so we can all debate this issue, come back on your show, and make a decision.
All right. Andrew.
A story that didn't get a lot of attention this week was Tim Ryan, the former congressman and 2022 Democratic Senate candidate who lost, is now kind of looking for work, and he took a paid position. I didn't mean to say paid position, a position with the Bitcoin Policy Institute. I'm unclear if it's paid. I'm kind of curious if it is, but he's also done some other lobbying sort of or advocacy type work. So I'm just really interested in what his post-Congress career is. So I thought that was interesting this week.
Hey, Laura.
Another story that didn't get a whole lot of attention, but I think is pretty important. The Corrections Institution Inspection Committee, the CIIC, did a inspection of Indian River Juvenile Prison up near in Massillon, and they just found that there's just ongoing problems with vacancies, high rates of vacancies, violence, and kids being stuck in their rooms.
All right. My prediction is the Blue Jackets, big night for them. They'll find out if they get the #1 draft pick. Odds are against it, but I predict they'll get one of the top 4 NHL draft picks this time. Of course, they're guaranteed to get in the top 4, so take that to the bank. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation on Facebook and watch us anytime at our website or on the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.